DEA is still hunting down the primary suspect who actually lives in Sinaloa, Mexico. During the course of this investigation, we did learn that homicides had taken place up and down the state, as well as in the central San Joaquin Valley.
Did you say that one suspect was responsible for 25 murders?
Yes, sir. So in another case,
this is what you're seeing in California today in real time.
Real time, we have a man who was an assassin working for the cartel. And this man admitted to over 25 different assassinations that took place at the direction of the cartel. He was discovered after he had committed a homicide and accidentally had left a receipt from the gas station, and we caught him on video and was able to speak with him. And during the course of those, but what he also admitted is that he was responsible for a certain area of California. And there were many other assassins assigned by cartels in California, throughout California, that were responsible for those areas.
So this is going on all over the state, presumably, all over every state. Are you hearing from other sheriffs about these issues?
I am.
What are they saying?
They're saying much of the same thing. You know, Sheriff Lamb is a good friend of mine out of Arizona who he and I speak pretty regularly. Much of what I speak of in regards to California and the violence, as well as the human trafficking, it's mirrored in other states all throughout the United States.
Now, illegal migrants often arrive into this country deeply indebted to the Mexican cartels that do actually control the border. How do the cartels enforce these debts on the other migrants?
Enforce on the other who?
On the other migrants.
What's happening in our communities, we're seeing people who have come into the United States on work visas and or victim visas, where they're living in these small migrant farming towns. The cartel wants to control these migrant towns and truly lead the same way that they are in other countries, specifically in Mexico.
So the violence we're seeing in Mexico is already here and is in the process of getting deeply rooted into our communities.
It's already rooted.
Wow. What impact would you say sanctuary policies are having on this phenomenon, as well as the Democrats' no-cash bail bonds?
Well, I can speak to California. As you are well, Senate Bill 54 made California a sanctuary state. Here's some of the problems that we're facing. Every sheriff in the state of California in times past used to be able to ask immigration status of those who are arrested and coming through our jails. It no longer is in existence. Sheriffs, law enforcement are no longer allowed under Senate Bill 54, supported by Kamala Harris at the time, spearheading much of the Senate Bill 54 with Sacramento Democrats.
So when the Democrats tell us, well, there's no real evidence that illegal migrants cause more crimes, you're not even allowed to ask if they're illegal migrants.
Well, and that's part of the formula. If I'm not able to ask, then there's no data to support. And so we are legally bound in California from asking someone their immigration status under Senate Bill 54.
Now, the New York Post recently reported that NYPD officers were estimating that about 75% of the violent crimes they're arresting in Manhattan are committed by illegal migrants. Can you give us a rough estimate, just from your experience, what you think is going on?
I'd have to give you experience and opinion because the data doesn't allow me to collect it through the formula.
Right. What's your estimate?
But what I can tell you is that the crimes that we're seeing based on our investigations, we're well over 50%.
I see my time's expired. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, gentleman. Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My staff prepared a speech for me today. I'm going to set that aside and just speak to the witnesses today who are survivors. And I want to say that I certainly offer my condolences. My heart goes out to you for the losses that you suffered. I did want to say this too, though, a slight departure from the script that these hearings typically take. I'm a former prosecutor. I spent 4 years as a prosecutor here in Washington, D.C. During the height of the crack wars, we averaged about 450 to 500 murders here per year. And then a short time after that, I became the state's attorney in Prince George's County, Maryland. Ms. Moore and Ms. Nobles, I think you're both from Maryland, and I think the people that handled your cases were state's attorneys as well. And one of the things I found, I got there in office in 2002. I didn't realize it when I was running, but there was a gang called MS-13 that had come to the district, Maryland and Virginia, and was a highly violent gang. They are organized criminally, and they were 20 plus years ago at the time, and they commit extreme violent acts along the lines of what you're talking about. Including, I think the first case we had was they killed a witness with a golf club. It's a 14-year-old girl. They tricked her into going into a cemetery, and they beat her to death in the head using a golf club to kill her. And I guess Bush was the president at the time. And, you know, we had similar kinds of issues as what we're talking about today. People going and coming back that get deported from here even after being prosecuted. They made them serve out their jail time, and then they would deport them back to El Salvador. But one of them I talked to subsequently, he'd become a witness against other members in the gang, said basically they just viewed it as a free trip home because they knew that they could come back whenever they wanted to. And that was 2003. I think one of the things I'd like to say to you all is I deeply respect taking up the mantle that you've taken up today. You're able to speak with a moral authority that politicians like me really can't. And I know you'd rather trade that in a heartbeat to get your loved ones back. And I know we can't do that today. But I'll say this as well. I've been involved in public service for a long time. In fact, that was my first boss in politics right there, John Conyers. He was chairman of the committee last time it passed legislation on immigration, which was over 35 years ago. And I also had a chance to, and they did that on a bipartisan basis, by the way. When I was state's attorney in Prince George's County, we did a joint prosecution with the federal prosecutor in a RICO case. We took down 23 gang leaders. The prosecutor in that case was Rod Rosenstein. And Rod and I had known each other because we'd been on the opposite sides of the Whitewater case. I worked for the Senate Democrats, essentially defending the Clinton administration. He worked for Ken Starr, essentially trying to take down the Clinton administration. And he was obviously a Republican. I was obviously a Democrat, but we were able to come together and work that case together and do it in a successful way. Now, you'll notice that at this hearing, that there's no legislation connected to the testimony that's being presented today. I think one of you actually referenced Ted Cruz legislation in the Senate side, but there's nothing pending here in the House that would address the problems we're talking about today. We had the chance to do that, but we chose not to do that. My chairman and my Republican colleagues chose not to do that. And there's a story behind that I don't have time to tell, but it doesn't really get to the point I want to make to you, which is this. Beyond this election cycle, because that's an issue that's in the way of getting something done right now that will address the kinds of problems that you're talking about, there's going to be more opportunities for you to use your voices and your platforms to address these kinds of issues. I'm a Democrat, you're Republicans, or they're Republicans, you may be independents, I don't know. But I know that there's truth on both sides on this issue. And there's a way to get to a place where we can resolve it. But we won't do it in a partisan way. And so I want to thank you for coming today. And I urge you to continue the struggle, the fight, the voice. I think Ms. Nungari, you said you will forever be her voice. I know that's true for all of you. And I encourage you to continue in that fight and that effort. But I hope that we can get to a point where we move beyond the partisanship, beyond the politics that have nothing to do with resolving the problem, and can get to a place where we can address it. Just for an additional moment, Mr. Chairman, I can read Justice Kavanaugh. This is a quote I read every time we have a hearing like this. And he's a Republican, obviously. But I want to say, as the district court found, the executive branch does not possess the resources necessary to arrest or remove all of the non-citizens covered by the arrest and removal statutes. That reality is not an anomaly. It is a constant. For the last 27 years since those laws were enacted in their current form, all 5 presidential administrations have determined that resource constraints necessitated prioritization in making immigration arrests. In light of the inevitable resource constraints and regularly changing public safety and public welfare needs, the executive branch must balance many factors when devising arrest and prosecution policies. I read that just to say this. 5 administrations have come and gone. We still haven't gotten things done. We're not going to get anything done today from a legislative standpoint, but there's a way to get it done if we can come together and work on a bipartisan way to do it. And so I thank you for the work that you've done and you will continue to do. I yield back to them.
The gentleman yields back. Before yielding to the gentleman from Arizona, I would just point out bad things may have happened 20 years ago, but obviously more bad things are happening now in light of 10 million people in 3.5 years coming into the country. That's the different dynamic. That's what our witnesses are talking about. Yield to the gentleman from Arizona.
If I might, Mr. Chairman.
I gave you an extra 2 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And what I point out is, I don't want to get distracted by responding to all of what I would call blather I just heard. But I will say this, the Republican Party joined with Democrats to pass H.R. 2 15 months ago. And that was a border security bill. And that would have taken care of a lot of issues that we've seen on the border. So I first want to thank, in particular, all our witnesses for coming, but particularly pay homage to Ms. Nobles, Ms. Aguirre, Ms. Fundner, Ms. Morin, and Ms. Nungare. Thank you for your courage and your very poignant testimony today. We won't forget. But I want to read a quote here from one of the witnesses that the Democrats invited. Quote, "But cruel and inhumane actions and policies by the United States Border Patrol, Texas Department of Public Safety, and local law enforcement have made it incredibly difficult for individuals fleeing violence and insecurity to live safely." Close quote. Sheriff, an open border that lets people come in by the millions, unvetted, that terrorize Americans. Can you describe that as anything but cruel and inhumane? What we're seeing is very cruel. When I'm looking in the eyes of 11-year-old girls who have been brought across the border and been raped, when we have young families who have been brought across the border as victims of human trafficking landing in the United States, specifically to what I can speak to in the central San Joaquin Valley of California, not 1 or 2, these are hundreds of people coming across as victims, where they're brutally raped, beaten, and used in the sexual way and in the sex industry. It's cruel. I feel that if we secure our border, we vet the people coming in, we identify the most egregious and felonious and those with mental health conditions that are impacting the safety of Americans and Californians, as to what I can speak to, I would identify your statement as being true, very cruel. So just for relational or contextual matter, the Yuma sector, which is one of the largest on the southwest border, in the last year of the previous administration, their encounters were about 8,600. And that includes unaccompanied minors, single men, family units, and others. About 8,500.
Watch what the next
During the
one
height
says
of
after
what we've seen going on under this
this
administration,
gentleman's done talking.
the Biden-Harris plan on the border, Yuma at one point was getting that weekly. There have been weekends that they've gotten that. It's now back a pace where it takes about 3 to 4 weeks to get that. What they experienced in 1 year, that small community is seeing
Mr. Big.
about once a month now. And it comes with it the flow of individuals that are totally non-vetted. The way they go, we don't know where they're going. The #1 got-away corridor, the Tucson sector in which I live,
It's horrible with these mothers.
#1 got-away
And not only them, other mothers out
We don't
there,
know who they are
the
or where
people
they go.
wanna
We know that
come
they are
across the
trying like
border,
crazy
the
to
things they
evade
have to go through is
capture.
horrible, man.
And they get into the communities and you see what's happened by the testimony today.
Right on.
And I keep on my
Yeah,
computer.
whatever.
I was just looking at it earlier today. There literally were hundreds of articles over the last 3 months of violent crimes perpetrated on Americans and those who are legally in the country by those who've illegally come into the country and been released. It isn't a matter necessarily of resources because there are ICE beds and ORR beds available. It is a matter of policy because they won't let you, Sheriff, actually report to ICE and request information. And if there's an ICE hold, can you turn them over to ICE? You cannot. It is policy that has driven the grief that you see here today. My time is up.
Gentleman yields back, gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first want to also express
Listen to
my
this lady.
profound condolences to each and every one of you who've suffered loss. I have 2 kids, I'm a mom. I would do anything for my kids, and I cannot imagine the grief of losing a loved one in such a tragic way. So I want you to know how much I respect the courage that it took for you to be here today to share your grief and your pain. I represent El
That's
Paso,
where it
Texas, an incredible community right on the US-Mexico border. I'm the only member of this committee who actually lives on the border, raised her kids on the border. I'm a 3rd-generation border resident. And there is no one who wants to
She's
modernize
100%
our
for
outdated laws
opening
more
the
than
borders.
those of us who live on the border. We are the families that have
Now, I could
for
play something
decades
that lets you
been
listen
trying to
what
help the
mothers
federal
had to
government
say.
treat people with dignity and humanity. And we have long been asking
Which
for
is way more
reform.
important than her blah, blah,
I
blah.
think what is most frustrating to me as a member of Congress is what is happening today at this committee hearing, where we have colleagues who are exploiting people's pain for political purposes. And unfortunately, that's what's happening today. The
Disgusting.
finger
yeah.
pointing at the administration by members of Congress is frustrating to me as a member of Congress because we are the ones who write the laws. It is legislators who are responsible to write the laws around immigration, around border policy, and it is up to legislators to adequately fund the resources necessary. I can tell you that I have been pushing a bipartisan comprehensive immigration reform bill that addresses outdated border policies and that addresses migration and immigration together. There are 8 Republicans who've had the courage to join that bill. None of them are on this committee. And that bill cannot move because of the obstacles put in front of that. The administration has tried and asked over and over again for adequate resources. They've been hamstrung by obstacles put in the way, preventing those resources from getting to where they need to be.
So $5,000
Mr. Ivey
a month ain't
mentioned
enough?
a Senate bill so draconian, I could not have
That
voted
ain't
for it.
pretty, yeah.
It was enforcement only. It
Don't care
was,
nothing
to me,
about us.
not workable because it was so focused, again, only on enforcement. But
Enforcement.
it wasn't Democrats who stood in the way of that. It was the folks on the other side of the aisle who torpedoed what was the most border hardening bill ever written. And that's what Republicans called it. And with regard
Notice
to
when she lies.
Mr. Ivy, you mentioned wanting solutions, and one of our colleagues mentioned HR2. I know you're aware of this, but their bill, HR2, relies almost exclusively on Mexico. And if Mexico
lock the
wasn't
border.
doing the job that they're determining needed to be done in HR2 was a fantasy. It wouldn't do anything. My point is this. When there were mass shootings, including, as Ms. Lopez mentioned, a mass shooting in El Paso, Texas, by a white supremacist, 23 people shot and murdered in cold blood with an assault-style
like 4 or
weapon,
5 white supremacists just
traumatizing
pop
an
up
entire
during election
community.
time. Every
We
year,
held hearings that were
a white
linked to
supremacist
solutions.
pops up.
We wanted
with
to
a
solve
military
the issue. We
background
wanted to bring
every
resolution. We wanted to find a path forward so that people wouldn't live with the
Goldman
kind of
Finance,
pain
look at it.
that communities like ours that have lived through mass
They ain't
shootings
doing that.
had to live through. There really, truly,
I ain't gonna sell out.
there is very little
I don't
interest
need that.
on the other side of working in a bipartisan way to find
I'll get it.
meaningful
Somehow or another,
solutions.
I'll get it.
You all deserve that.
It ain't gonna be
Our
because
country
Goldman
deserves
is
that.
Goldman Finance
And there are
company,
those of
that's
us in
for sure.
Congress fighting to get to
I'd rather
those
be David
bipartisan
Gross somewhere
solutions
before I let somebody like
because
that help.
we don't want to see families living in pain. We don't want you to endure the loss. We don't want anyone else to endure the loss that you all have endured. I and other colleagues are going to continue to work on those bipartisan solutions because that's what our country deserves. I hope you will join us in fighting for those bipartisan solutions because it's long past time that we get there. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Jelly yields back. Ms. Nobles, did Republicans on this committee, Ms. Nobles, Republicans on this committee or any of Republican staff exploit you in any way to come to today's hearing?
No, I am not being forced to be here. I am here because I want to be here and I want changes to be made and I'm fighting for here for my daughter. And I can't speak for everyone else, but I'm sure the other witnesses weren't even forced to be here either. And they want to because they love their children.
In fact, my understanding is our Republican staff helped you get answers to the murder of your daughter that you didn't get from anywhere else. Our staff helped get that information by
Yes,
going to DHS.
You have, yeah, yes.
How about you,
have.
Ms. Moran? Did you feel exploited in any way? That's what the Democrat just said.
No, I don't feel it.
You're here to tell your story about what's going on out there. Ms.
Yes.
Gary?
No, I do not feel exploited.
Yes.
I simply want to raise awareness that we need change, and my daughter's voice and her memory should not get lost in that.
Well said. Ms. Funder?
I don't feel exploited in any way. As a matter of fact, I find it very interesting that all 5 minutes from both of your testimonies on the left have not had any questions for us up here, but instead a speech. And I will tell you, I'm getting tired of hearing about the most comprehensive border bill, which did nothing for for American citizens. It gave visas to people who needed to extend their visas, and it gave asylum to people coming over, and it did zero for an American citizen. And I would love somebody to answer to me what it actually did for American citizens. It did not do anything for an American citizen.
Ms. Aguirre? Ms. Aguirre?
It's insulting that you would say that to these families, that you would make an assumption that they're being used or exploited anyway. You know, what I will do is I'll give you my number. It's 281-673-0736. And I'd like a phone call from you to see what you can do to help these families, because every single week I get bombarded with calls from victims all over the United States. But I'm just a small person with a small foundation that helps people here locally in Houston and Harris County. Not one time when her daughter was murdered and I was helping her navigate the criminal justice system did one Democrat call me to offer their assistance. It was only Republicans, and I am an independent. I vote both ways. So it's insulting. No, please don't speak over me because I'm still talking. I have the mic. I have the floor. I have the floor. If you want to answer me, you ask.
Has the time and the witness is allowed to
So
respond.
I'm asking, you said some very broad statements. It's insulting. These people lost loved ones. They lost children.
Thank you.
And we want to see a difference. We may not understand everything that's going on, but I assure you that we're not being used in any way. And if today somebody calls that number that wants to help from any side of the aisle, we want solutions.
You ain't
That's
got
So
what
one
everybody, I'm
step,
still
bro.
talking.
The
So
time-
please don't
I just talked
Don't
about
make
it.
an
I will stop
assumption,
it.
don't make an assumption that we're being used. That
Time,
is insulting,
time belongs to
This
the
is
chair. The chair now yields,
insulting.
chair yields the remainder of his time to the gentleman from Texas.
I think what is I thank the chairman. Ms. Nungaray, your daughter was taken from you in June of 2024, this year, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
She was killed by two Venezuelan men who crossed into Texas in March and May of this year, correct?
That's correct.
Those two Venezuelan men that crossed into Texas were released by this administration into the community after crossing, correct?
That's correct.
Do you believe that your daughter would be here today if they had not been released into the United
Yeah, I
States?
tell you honestly, the
I
reason
so
why
heartedly
I'm streaming
believe that,
this
yes.
is I feel
Ms.
like
Moran,
we need to get
your
the
daughter
word
was
out
taken
to
from you in
as
August of
many people as
2023, correct?
possible about
Yes.
this problem.
Killed by a man from El Salvador who crossed illegally and was a gotaway.
You
Is
ain't
that
gotta
correct?
be here.
Yes.
Do you believe your
See
daughter
later.
would be
It
here
was like
today
seeing you.
if the current
Ms. Carter.
administration were not overwhelming border patrols such that we have 2 million known gotaways over the last 3 years?
I think that if we had the policies in place that we did a few years ago that vetted the immigrants that came in, that my daughter would still be here.
Ms. Nobles, your daughter was taken from you in July of 2022. Is that correct?
Yes.
By a 17-year-old from El Salvador
Hey,
who
listen, let
entered
me say
in March of
something.
2022, just a
People
few
in
months
here
before,
watching.
correct?
Correct.
Was released into the
And only
country.
3 libertarians
Is that correct?
had something to
Correct.
say because
Do
there's
you believe that
something
your daughter would be here
said.
today if that individual had not been released into the country according to a mass release program that has been underway for the last 3 years?
Yes, she would be alive today if they would have made that one phone call to El Salvador to check because he did have a criminal record in 2020 and gang-related tattoos.
I yield back.
Thank you. Chair recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Nether.
Thank you. Dr. Farfan Mendez, we have heard about some devastating tragedies at today's hearing. Unfortunately, tragedies occur far too often in this country
Here's
at the
another
hands of
chart.
non-citizens and citizens alike. Parents are afraid that their kids won't be safe at school, at parades, grocery stores, and even in houses of worship. The United States has long struggled to pass meaningful gun violence prevention measures into law.
Hey,
Last Congress, we were able to enact some much-needed reforms, but far more must be done. How does our inability to ensure that guns are well regulated, as the Second Amendment calls for, embolden cartels and incentivize more people to migrate to the United States?
No, not gonna work.
Thank you for your question, Congressman Netler. One of the things that when we discuss organized crime is often lost in the conversation is that like any organization, they also have operating costs. And one of these operating costs is that related to guns and the ability to perpetrate violence. And because it's so easy to traffic guns from the United States into Mexico, essentially what has happened is it has significantly lowered the cost of perpetrating violence in Mexico and other parts in the Western Hemisphere. And what these criminal groups are able to do, because violence is an essential component of their activities, is issue very credible threats to people, meaning that I can convince you because I have an arsenal, prove it, that either you comply with what I'm saying or there will be consequences. And what we have seen is that to the extent that criminal groups are better armed and have these arsenals, again, that are very easy to acquire and traffic from the US into Mexico and other parts in the hemisphere, this creates displacement in communities, meaning that it puts pressure on migration corridors and it creates challenges in terms of addressing the migration flows that we're discussing here today. And what I'm hearing today essentially is I think all of us in this room are interested in having the health and safety of our communities. And what I would say to you is that to the extent that this firearms trafficking is not addressed, it's going to be a root cause that is basically left unattended. And we will be asking questions where the answer is very clear. Again, to the extent that these criminal groups have access to firearms that are very easy
It's a
to acquire from
way
the US and
of
also
trying to
ammunition,
get gun
this would make
control.
it very cheap for them to perpetrate violence, and it would put a lot of pressure on migration flows.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Over the past few years, we've seen harm.
Now look, let me ask y'all a question real quick, right? Real fast. Listen. So if we're trafficking guns into Mexico, right? How is it that the highest rate of ghost guns comes out of Mexico? I don't know about that, y'all, but I'm just saying, right? I know that they're trying their hardest for gun control, gun reform. They're trying to take our Second Amendment from us, bro.
Rhetoric thrown at religious organizations that help migrants, including the Catholic Church and the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, HIAS. Such rhetoric was echoed by the gunmen who murdered 11 congregants at the Tree of Life Synagogue in 2018. We've also heard attacks on religious organizations from members of this committee. Your organization is affiliated with the Roman Catholic Church of El Paso. Can you talk about how your faith calls you to serve all those in need of help, including asylum seekers?
Yes, thank you,
But
Congressman
whatever I
Adler.
tell you can look up.
For me, at a very fundamental level, as a Catholic, it's important to me that every single person be treated with human dignity and respect. And at the very core of the work that we do, that's what it comes down to, is treating people with respect. You know, even sitting here today, having to hear the stories and the losses of, you know, the witnesses on the panels, I can't even imagine, you know, the losses that they're dealing with and the pain that they're going through. And so we as an organization try really hard to make sure that we are treating people with that same dignity and respect, and that as attorneys, we're bound by the law. We are bound by what we are allowed to do within the legal system, and we work really hard to make sure that those individuals who do qualify for a benefit, that we treat them with the respect and dignity that they deserve.
Thank you. And how do attacks on religious organizations impact your work?
It makes it really scary for us to do the work day in, day out. I will say that it doesn't hinder our work, but it certainly makes us more weary of our surroundings. Following the mass shooting in 2019, we did have to increase security around our building out of fear that we might be the next target.
Thank you. Dr. Farfan-Mendez and Ms. Lopez, you both live and work on the border.
Why is
Can you please tell us about life on the border and how living there has shaped your view of immigration in the United States? Dr. Farfan-Mendez, let's start with you.
So he let every retard
Thank you, Congressman Adler. Well, I'm an immigrant, and let me share a story with you. August 30th is the International Day of the Disappeared, and August 31st is Overdose Awareness Day. And it's by happenstance that these 2 days happen to be together, but it seems very pertinent to the reality of North America. And those 2 days, we set empty chairs, one on the San Diego side of the US border and one in Tijuana, the Mexican side. And those empty chairs symbolize precisely the loved ones that are no longer at the tables to gather with their loved ones. And what it meant to do, and what it is a call to action, to think about how border communities can work together. And what's interesting and pertinent to this hearing from this call to action at the border is that families on both sides came together to say these are shared tragedies and these are shared pains, and we should be thinking about how we can work together and have meaningful engagement to stop deaths on both sides of the border. And so I will let you with that story of pragmatism and hope again from the border in terms of how we can find a path forward.
I brought y'all up a little higher.
I would say for me, there's something really beautiful about being on the border. We have the opportunity to live a life that's quite complex, and in that, you know, we know what it's like to be in Mexico. We know what it's like to be in the United States. We have a sharing of culture, a sharing of language, a sharing of so much, and that it almost feels like one large community along the border. And there are the complexities of immigration and immigration matters along the border that, you know, I have family members that are unable to cross into the United States because they don't have immigration status. And so it's a complex life, but it's a very beautiful, beautiful culturally rich place to live.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Texas.
I thank the chairman. I want to finish the line of questioning that I started before. Ms. Aguirre, I'm going to come back to you on something more specific, but just on this simple question. You told a story of Maria Gonzalez, the 11-year-old girl who was taken from her father and was killed by a 17-year-old Guatemalan released into the United States. Is that correct? In microphones, yes. So that is correct. And then I would say for Ms. Fundner, your son Weston lost his life to fentanyl poisoning, correct? Now, unlike the specifics of some of these other witnesses, you can't say for certain exactly how that fentanyl got through to your son. But you would agree that Weston is one of hundreds of thousands, correct? I think one of you testified that 300,000 lost lives. And so the many faces of fentanyl, right? The many faces of fentanyl. Can we say that we are losing more Americans to fentanyl poisoning as a direct consequence of open borders allowing fentanyl to pour into our communities? Would you agree with that, Ms. Fundner?
100%.
We have witnesses here at the table talking about the crimes that affected them directly. I would ask Sheriff Bedreau, just kind of a yes or no or quick response to this question. In 2021, there were 11,200 pounds of fentanyl seized. You go to crime in 2022, we had 12,000 criminal alien arrests at the border. In 23, border agents apprehended 15,000 criminals. With 2 months left in FY24, we are also at 15,000 criminal arrests, and the year isn't over yet, so it's surging. But here's the real problem. So my colleagues on the other side of the aisle will say, oh, look, it's working. They're doing their job. But while Border Patrol has intercepted those increasing numbers of criminals, DHS whistleblowers revealed on August 11th, 24, that as many as 950,000 violent criminals have gone unidentified. In your experience, do you think it is an accurate assessment that scores, thousands of criminals are coming into the United States and being released or getting away from authorities?
That is accurate and true.
And that in your experience, you see it in real time. Is that correct, Sheriff?
In real time.
So we've talked about all of the impacts on the individuals that are testifying here. Ms. Aguirre, I wanted to see if this would surprise you. I released a report my office did titled Border Invasion or America Invaded. And in it, I detailed 50 examples that we found, 50 examples, and there were more. We had to cut the list off in order to make sure we had room. Let's read a few of these across the country. See if you agree that you think this is a problem in what you're experiencing in your life representing people that are victims. September 3rd, the consequences of the Biden-Harris administration's open border policies, the case of the illegal alien brutally assaulting a teenage Louisiana girl. August 30th, the case of the illegal alien who brutally assaulted a New York woman. August 17th, Brazilian migrant accused of multiple Massachusetts sex crimes arrested. August 15th, Haitian illegal immigrant charged with raping pregnant woman at Massachusetts migrant motel. August 15th, U.S. officials nab Peruvian gang leader wanted for nearly 24 killings in home country. August 14th, machete wielder at Capitol was a legal immigrant despite being a priority, quote unquote, for detention. August 13th, migrant charged with rape in third NYC sex crime bust of an asylum seeker in 2 weeks. August 12th, NYC migrants, including one charged in sex assault 4 months ago, raped woman at knife point, beat her boyfriend. August 7th, Venezuelan migrant with suspected gang ties released in the United States before terrorizing NYC and is yet to be deported. I can go all the way back, date by date, through the year, into last year, November 4th, 2021. Without objection, I'll insert this into the record and the thousands of examples that are plaguing Americans across the country. With that background, one, Ms. Aguirre, can you confirm that these are just a sampling of what you're experiencing as a victim advocate out of Houston and people that are contacting you across the country, that this is not hyperbole, that this is not political, that these are in fact real human beings that we're trying to advocate for? And secondly, can you explain to the American people why was Maria targeted?
You know, I'm going to start with the fact that the reason there's so many sexual assaults committed by illegal immigrants is because in their countries, there's very little consequences. Meaning that when there's a girl found that has been raped and murdered, it's not unusual. There isn't DNA collection and there's no embalming and there's no autopsy. She's buried. And along with her is what they did to her. So these predators thrive in these countries. And if you're not from those countries, you don't know that. Everybody thinks that it's it's like America everywhere else, and it's simply not. So when they come to this country to do this, because they're accustomed to doing that in their countries. And this is a problem with letting everybody in. And the case of Maria Gonzalez echoes this, because also Maria was here illegally as well. But her and her father were living an honorable, quiet, hardworking life, while this other individual came into this country as a child migrant, came in at 17 years old, and he was 18 years old when he killed her. 3 weeks into being in this country, and he killed her. The reason he chose her is because she's a child. The second reason, because she's a beautiful little girl. And the third is because she was vulnerable. They don't even have respect for their own communities, because both of these individuals were from Guatemala. Did that stop him from killing her? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it was not necessarily something that we could say, oh, well, you know, she passed away peacefully. No, she passed away fighting. She passed away hurting. She passed away losing nails, biting him, trying to get him off of her in her own home. These individuals see a little girl and they have an appetite for her. They see a woman and they have an appetite for her, because they do this in their country and it's not unusual. These are the type of people that we're letting in. By not checking, we don't know who's coming in. And you're not only in it, while you're reading your list, a lot of these people that they're harming are within their own, seeking the people that are in their hotels as well. There are also migrants that are being hurt. So they're hurting each other. And the same, like as you two are here in the testimony, Ms. Lopez and Dr. Mendez, you guys advocate for immigrants, but immigrants are also being victims of these bad immigrants. I just don't understand how we could let everybody in without checking them.
Thank you, Ms. Aguirre. I yield back.
Someone yields back. Gentleman from California.
Our own people.
Oh, we'll go down the line. I'll do whatever you. Oh, okay.
I'm sorry to each of you for the circumstances that have brought you here. I'm truly sorry that this has happened to your loved ones. And the persons responsible for the deaths of Weston, Arlene, Rachel, Kayla, and Jocelyn should die in jail and then rot in hell. That's what they deserve. I believe in security. I want barriers on our southern border at every place that makes sense. I don't want anyone to come into our country if we don't know who they are. I was a prosecutor. I'm probably one of the only persons in this room who's actually prosecuted and put away for the rest of their life some of the most violent people in our community. I'm the son of a cop. My brothers are cops. The two of them walk the beat every single day. I believe we can have security first, and also address a workforce crisis and find a pathway to earned citizenship in our country. But I want to be real with you. Congress is divided, and it's hard to get everything you want. On gun violence, I want an assault weapons ban and background checks. We have a divided Congress, and so we had to settle for Republicans and Democrats coming together for the Safer Communities Act. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. And fewer kids will die in their classrooms today because Congress compromised. I want to be real with you. They don't want a compromise. Donald Trump walked away from the second most conservative Republican in the Senate offering a compromise. Don't take my word for it. Take theirs.
He's a disgusting.
Border is a very important issue for Donald Trump. And the fact that he would communicate to Republican senators and congresspeople that he doesn't want us to solve the border problem because he wants to blame Biden for it is really appalling.
But I would acknowledge President Trump failed, along with Republicans. They failed in 2018 to actually move a border security bill to tighten this so that we weren't dealing with this crisis right now.
We all felt that the border was a complete disaster, myself included. First, it was an effort to make law, which requires you to deal with Democrats. And then a number of our members thought it wasn't good enough. And then our nominee for president didn't seem to want us to do anything at all.
It's your colleagues in your party, sir, who torpedoed this, who didn't get the facts right on what you just outlined was in that measure. They killed it. Ironically, not Democrats. Right.
Each of you came here today, not easily, but you expected a serious forum. You are serious. This issue is serious. They are not serious. The chairman yesterday tweeted, are the aliens? The chairman yesterday tweeted, when President Trump was in office, the border was secure and illegal aliens weren't eating your pets. He also then tweeted, again, knowing that you're going to come here to talk about your loved ones who were lost, you would expect some seriousness, some gravitas, respect for the people who came here. What in the hell is this? The chairman tweets, protect our ducks and kittens in Ohio because he goes down some crazy rabbit hole, completely debunked that aliens are eating pets. My God, are you okay, Mr. Chairman? Because last year, for a very long time, you tweeted and promoted Kanye West as he was calling for genocide against the Jews, and you kept it up. And now when we have victims coming here, you're tweeting this nonsense. I don't know why you would do this. I hope you're okay. I don't know if the aliens who are eating your ducks are in the room with us right now, but Mr. Chairman, this is a serious issue. These people have loved ones who have been lost, and you tweeted this. So I am sorry that you came here expecting seriousness. You are serious. They are not, and you deserve a hell of a lot more than what you're getting from them. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Thank you very much. I hope you appreciate the drama that just came out here. We passed a bill called HR 2. It's the best secure the border bill that has ever passed through a House in the United States Congress. And if you read it, it secures the border. It accomplishes what you would like to see happen. And by the way, to secure the border, it doesn't even require an act of Congress at this point. The president undid it, and the vice president, as the borders are, undid it. They can put it back together anytime that they want to. It's as simple as that. Ms. Fundner, last week in my home state of Wisconsin, an illegal alien gang member from Venezuela was charged with domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, and strangulation. Are you surprised?
I mean, no.
Are you surprised that he already had active warrants in a neighboring county for similar offenses?
Absolutely not.
Mr. Boudreau, Sheriff Boudreau, would you be surprised that this illegal alien had 2 fictitious immigration documents on him, including a social security card when he was arrested?
Not surprised at all.
Would you be surprised that during the investigation by the police chief in Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin, he uncovered that this illegal alien came to the United States about a year ago in El Paso?
Not shocking.
Since he came across in El Paso, he was arrested in Minneapolis in November of 2023.
As an American, a human being, how could you even sit down and endorse
did not issue a detainer to ICE,
not having a border up around our country with all the stuff that's going on outside this country that our government has called? But we had to suffer for it. Then they want to take our only line of protection. That's the only thing that keeps the people out from coming to take our country over. Is the fact that there's more guns in the country than there is anywhere else.
And Sheriff Boudreau, are you from California, ma'am? I did not hear your opening testimony. Isn't it correct that the vice president called for the end of ICE detainers as an elected official?
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, I think we should have a hearing in the state of Wisconsin. Prairie du Chien is a community of about 5,000 people, beautiful little community south of La Crosse on the Mississippi River. And as a result of the failure, certainly in Minneapolis, probably in Dane County also, there is a person that has come to that little community now that has been charged with violent crimes, including against a minor. And as we're hearing from the people that are here today, they're not surprised at all that this would happen. And while making the joke in regards to ducks and things like that, it underlies a more serious issue in Springfield, Ohio, where you have what? Is it upwards of 10,000 Haitians that have been pushed into that small community, and they think, they being the president and the vice president, that they're simply going to assimilate into that community? It's not happening. It's not happening across America. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to issue the call once again. I think this committee should come to Wisconsin, and if you could come to Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin, people want answers. They want answers of why this is going on in the United States of America, how people can commit multiple offenses across various jurisdictions and nothing is done. And America is being destroyed. The fabric of family, community, it's being destroyed, isn't it, Ms. Bunner?
Yes, it certainly is.
So I hope you'll all come to Wisconsin. I know it's happening in every state, but I hope you'll come to Wisconsin because maybe it can make a difference to stop people like the current border czar from continuing this carnage of an invasion that is happening across America. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Looks like we may be heading to the Badger State. Gentleman from California is recognized.
This one?
At that one. It's your turn, brother.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to also echo my condolences to the parents of the victims. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing your stories. They will not be forgotten. And I also believe that those individuals who perpetrated those crimes should never see the light of day. They should fry in hell. Murder, rape, some of those most heinous crimes that can ever be committed against a human being. They leave scars, the survivors that never go away. You know, back home in Orange County, a dozen years ago, I came home from work and came home to a number of police cars and helicopters surrounding an apartment building right across the street from where I'm living.
Tell me why you got a hand.
Went to find out what was going on.
Look at it.
Soon realized that a rapist had been caught right in the middle of his act, raping a woman in the laundry room. This young man decided to dash off, took off through my neighborhood. We finally caught him. Found out through DNA and other instruments that he had raped at least 20 women, all undocumented in the area. And these are the women who actually stepped up to testify that they had been violated, that they had been raped. This is an American citizen who was preying on those that were undocumented. And Sheriff Bordeaux, I know your area. I spent
put that in there.
when I was a young man picking oranges, picking plums.
Had to do with
I did stuff for a living in your area. In your area,
it's not even just
there's a lot of
Spanish
undocumented farm
immigrants that they're
workers.
talking about. Why?
Honest,
is
hardworking individuals
there Arabs coming across the southern
that support the
border?
local
Chinese
economy,
coming
farm
across the
worker
southern
economy in that
border.
area. Farmers rely on them. Their economy relies on them.
Ukrainians.
I would
coming
imagine
across
you
the
wouldn't be
southern
supporting
border.
mass
They
deportation
flew in
of undocumented workers in that area.
55,000 Look
I would
at
imagine you'd
Ohio.
probably be more interested in some kind of an orderly way of vetting individuals. They're looking to work here honestly with a green card. What would you support, sir?
A lot of that goes outside my purview because my focus is public safety, but what I can say is this.
Sorry,
Sure.
bro.
Were you gonna comment?
No, sir, please.
If you're
But
gonna come into
what I
the
would say
country
is
the right
this,
way, I
is that what
support
we're
you
finding is that we're
100%.
having victims at all levels. Those who are here illegally and those who are here on work visas. We're finding that more and more of the violent and egregious, either cartels, gang members, are coming into the area, intimidating and terrorizing those that you speak
But I
of.
tell you
I
what,
serve in Homeland Security, so we're working a lot of these issues, trying to coordinate with other countries around the world to make sure these folks that commit crimes in other countries don't come here to do the same.
If I could say this,
Go ahead.
I've said this often. Mexico is not our enemy. Mexico is an ally of the United States. But who our enemy is the cartels, the human traffickers.
Couldn't agree with you more. Couldn't agree with you more.
I believe that we need to secure the border so that we can vet those coming in, so that we can have those working on work visas, as you mentioned, in our agricultural community. We have lots of people there that are here illegally, living peacefully.
In my last minute, we'll talk more later on, but I think everybody in this committee would probably be in favor of a secure border with a system to let those that are looking for good, honest work have the opportunity to find opportunities in America, just like our forefathers did. And I look forward to continuing to work with you, sir, and others. I have a very good relationship with Sheriff Barnes in Orange County, great man. But it is a mess. 80% of the women, by the time they get to our border from Central America, are raped or sexually assaulted. Horrible statistic. And these are a lot of, young girls has been described today. We have a lot of work to do. In my opinion, it's not a Democrat or Republican issue. I hope all of us here can figure out how to work together because these solutions have been proposed. We just can't get them implemented. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I yield.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My good friend from California is one of the more moderate Democrats. I appreciate his friendship. In this case, he's just dead wrong. We had 10, 12, 14 million illegals in this country before this president came in, and we hadn't been able to clear them out in years, and we hadn't been able to get them vetted into the jobs, including the 2 million jobs in agriculture that my farmers say they want. This president and this vice president have allowed more than 12 million additional illegals to come into this country, and they come disproportionately, not from Mexico, as you know, they come from some of the worst places on earth. I have been at the border. I am a border congressman with over 80 miles of border in my district, the busiest land port anywhere in the United States. And you know what? Every time I go there and lead a trip to the border, what I see are Venezuelans, Afghans, Syrians, Russians, and the list goes on, Chinese. And yes, Mexico's our ally, but Mexico is an ally that violates international law by allowing these people to come in without visas. If you're Chinese, you cannot go to Turkey without a visa unless you say you're going to America and have no visa. From Turkey, when you come to Mexico City, you cannot land there and not be immediately pushed out without a visa unless you say that you're going to the United States and have no visa. Then they sweep you all the way to the border. That has to change. And for the mothers who lost their children here today, I will tell you, it would have been avoidable. It would have been avoidable if we'd had the mass deportation of people illegally here. Dwight David Eisenhower was one of the most moderate members that has ever served as a president, but he was also the commander-in-chief, and before that, he was a five-star general, and he understood that laws need to be enforced. We are not enforcing the law. We have over 22 million illegals, and we still have shortages of farm labor, as Mr. Carrera would say. Well, we have that because nobody has been told, if you want to come here, we'll give you a visa to come here to be a farmer. And by the way, that's not a green card. A green card is a pathway to citizenship. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle, this is my 24th year I've served here. For 24 years, they talked about wanting reform. Every time they want to reform, it's like that cockamamie thing that was going to come out of the Senate, where you could do 5,000 people a day. And then if the president objected, you could slow things down. That's not a solution. Now, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are calling this a stunt. This isn't a stunt. This is the fourth year of an administration that has willfully allowed people to come here with no vetting whatsoever. Again and again and again, and they know it. And the border czar, now presidential candidate, was the first person assigned the job and hasn't yet done it. Just as she was the last person in the room before the withdrawal from Afghanistan. So I will tell you, I'm going to ask you a question, Sheriff. It's pure law enforcement. It is something I'd like to hear your opining on. In my district, we had a hearing just a week ago. We had one of our mothers explaining how her child came to be confronted by illegal adult males trying to force themselves onto a school bus because they'd come illegally. And if you can come illegal in the US, why can't you also illegally get onto a school bus and make them take you where you want to go? In my home district, they couldn't figure out where a law was broken. Can you help me figure out how something so wrong can in fact not find a crime to charge these people with under state law?
I can't answer to the law enforcement in the area, and we support law enforcement. I know that you do as well.
I love my DA. She let me down. I'd like to like my sheriff, but I can't figure out how you could not come up with a charge. I know one thing. If I try to push my way onto a school bus, somebody would figure out a way to charge me.
I would figure out a way to charge. In California, in my county, we would figure out a way to charge. There's laws for a reason, and we have safety for
Can you hear me now?
reasons. And when you don't enforce the laws, safety is no longer in existence.
To all the brave parents who came here to talk about their losses, the only thing you can tell by many of us up here on the dais that are not, I tend to be a pretty laid-back member after so many years, and I don't yell and scream. But I am animated today about your losses and the fact that they will continue until we change how we do business. And it won't be with the people across the aisle.
Check. Hey, y'all that are in
We can't have 22 million people here.
in the live. Can you let me know if you can hear me or not?
It should be criminal aliens. It should be people from unvetted. But it should be those 1.4 million who have already been ordered deported, none of whom have been sent out. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, my objective in my 5 minutes, which is not much, is to hear from the moms. Before I do, I just want to take a trip down memory lane. Kate Steinle, does anybody know her name? Kate Steinle. She was used to be a stark outlier. She was shot on a pier in San Francisco in 2015. It was accidentally, like they said. It was sort of an occasion, sort of a freak encounter with an illegal alien. Now we have a hearing in front of us today in which I think I counted 5 dead. I think I got 4 brutal sexual assaults, a couple of those children. And Lake and Riley's murder seems to sort of have announced this new phase. In my own community, a Guatemalan was arrested in rural Gaston County on an Interpol warrant for a child rape. A Honduran was charged with murder 1 in Mecklenburg County, Charlotte, where I'm from, arrested in Houston. In July, a Honduran illegal 18-year-old with a 16-year-old undisclosed identity went on a random shooting spree in Charlotte, North Carolina, killing 1 person, injuring a number of people. It was an MS-13 gang initiation, we heard. We're hearing about Aurora, Colorado apartment buildings being taken over by local Venezuelan gangs. Eric Swalwell can laugh about it if he wants to. He thinks it's funny. But you hear in reports a guy standing in front of a city council talking about migrants, Haitian migrants, dumped like 20,000 of them dumped on one small community in Ohio, picking up ducks to eat and killing cats to eat them. I don't know if it's happening or not. We'll find out. They denied the Aurora thing at first, right, too. Witnesses have come before committees I've been on, and they've talked about hyper-violence. To the ladies, to Ms. Lopez and Dr. Mendez, with all due respect, conditions are not the same in the United States as in the countries from which people are fleeing. That's why they're fleeing. If you replicate the conditions in those communities, what will you have solved? Where will people flee? So here's the thing. When I was elected in a special election in September 2019, in October, I went to the border and it was calm and quiet. There was one asylum seeker at the port of entry I went to, because in May, all hell had broken loose. And the Trump administration had responded with the migrant protection protocols, remain in Mexico, and it crushed the number of people coming in. It stopped the overwhelming flow. So the question I have for the moms, and I'm going to ask you one by one, do you think it's getting worse? And do you think it can get even worse than it is now, Ms. Nobles?
Yes, most definitely. We're seeing more and more cases every day, a lot, way too many.
Ms. Funner?
Yes, absolutely. Fentanyl is just, every year it gets larger and larger, the deaths. I mean, this is on American soil. We have 300,000 people dead since 2021 under the Biden-Harris administration, and it's just growing, and we expect it to be much bigger this year. And we have reports that they're underreporting right now, and I'm not surprised because it's embarrassing. But yes, absolutely, it's getting worse. It's 100% getting worse.
Ms. Moran?
Yes, I think that if things continue, we're going to have a war on our soil. I think that this is a security risk for our country. And the reason why I think that is because people are turning a blind eye to what's actually going on. And that allows these unvetted criminals to come into our country, set up camp in all different states. I was just telling one of the gentlemen here that I was at the border. I met some folks at the border. I saw who lives at the border. I was also up in New England a week ago, and I was surprised at the amount of immigrants from the Congo and from Sudan and from South America in northern New England. That's unheard of. In Massachusetts, they've spent over $1.5 billion in order to.
I want to save about 30 seconds for Ms. Nungaray, so give me finish that.
All right, but yes.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Ms. Moran. That's quite the contrary. Ms. Nungaray, how about you? Is it getting worse? And do you think it can get worse than it is?
I do believe, yes, it is getting worse, and it will continue to get worse if we do not use every detention center facility bed to detain them until their immigration court hearings to confirm and make sure for us U.S. citizens that we will be safe with letting new individuals in this country, because they're taking our future, our children. They're taking people who are supposed to be making a difference in this world. It'll get worse if we don't make a difference.
Ms. Aguirre, I'm going to fire off one more question. They told us that there are about 2,500 children who were separated from their parents when we heard all the uproar about that. Now I understand that there are 300,000 children who are disconnected, gone missing. What about that?
To me, it clearly sees that there is more, there's more worry about immigrants' well-being than Americans' well-being. And that's troubling, because they rather comfort migrants by not putting them through the process of getting them vetted, and that means staying in a detention center while that vetting process is taking place in an asylum hearing, right? So they're willing to jeopardize American lives in the process. So it almost like they have these backdoor arrangements where they're like, okay, well, we might lose some American lives. Some of them might be criminals, and we're willing to gamble with the Americans' public safety. And that's where we're at right now, because people need to understand that I personally am not against migration. I am against unvetted migration, because as you said, these migrants are fleeing from something. And here we are creating the same environments here in United States soil that they're fleeing from. You know, it's astonishing to me how many of these victims are actually also asylum seekers that are victims of their own migrants that are there with them in these groups that are being housed together. And it's very troubling to me, because it's not good for anybody.
I join you. I think it's getting worse, and it can get worse. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Gentleman yields back. I apologize. We're going to have to take another recess. There are 2 votes on the floor. I will try to get back in.
All right, look, I'm going to show y'all this now. Stay with me for a second. All right, hold up. I'm going to show y'all something that I watched earlier. And I'm hoping that they still got it on here. And it's good. And I was listening to this earlier. Second Amendment is anti-racist. That is a good show. If you guys get to see that, hold up a second. Yeah, let me swing y'all for just 1 second. Let me find this real quick. And I'm telling you, it's going to answer some of the questions that we were just listening to. You hear them? Democrats, the way that they address the situation on the border, right? Well, let's see here. Need you, Larry.
New indictments against Donald Trump over January.
Oh. Boy, dude. James Earl Jones died. I can't believe that. That's heartbreaking, yo.
Pat Gray is here on the Blaze Radio Network.
I'm back. And this time, I'm pissed. Actually not yet, but I'm sure it will be tonight during the debate. Some incredible stuff. But anyway, it's great to be back. Been on for what, 10 days? 11, something like that. And so I had to have a hazmat team come in and clean off the desk. And
They just left.
they just left.
It took them 24 hours.
Get the Jeffy goo out of here. And so that's comfort. Yeah. How was your vacation, Keith?
Oh, it was fine. It was good.
Yeah.
Good getaway, you know?
You did go somewhere?
Yeah, just throughout the southeastern United States.
Sorry for you,
nice.
Tour.
All right.
Have
I went to Northwestern. Well, west of here, definitely north of here. Utah. Spent some time with Glenn in Idaho. I haven't seen the place in a while since he remodeled. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's not that bad. For a double wide trailer, you got a lot of room there because it's double wide and just as long as it was before. So yeah, it's it's nice. I'll tell you that. It's very, very nice. And it's nice to be back. Frankly, by about halfway through the vacation, I was chomping at the bit to come.
How does that happen with you?
I don't know.
I don't get this.
I don't know.
I mean, are you for
It's
real?
almost like I like what I do or something. Isn't
Right.
it weird?
Right. So
It's weird.
were the reports of you clubbing baby seals, hunting, fishing, playing frisbee golf? Are you saying that was or was not a part of this trip?
Well, I have to club baby seals this time of year. You know that.
Yes.
So I was in Newfoundland first.
I took a detour.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then went to Utah. But great to be back. It's a big day. It's a big week, really, politically. Of course, the Trump-Harris debate is tonight. And he should really be driving home some points. I hope he does. They say they're prepared. They're going to. And so, boy, excited about that.
I really hope undecided voters are watching. 1/3 of voters don't know where she stands on issues.
Well, how would they?
How would they?
Doesn't mention it.
Yeah, the campaign website for her just did put up a section of her policy positions.
Oh, wow.
For the first time after 50 days of being the nominee.
I think we'll compare some of the policy positions of Kamala to Donald Trump coming up here. But one of the fascinating things about the debate tonight, to me, is that Kamala wanted ABC to leave the microphones on, not mute them when the other one is speaking. Why? Why would you want that? Well, because her plan, I think, is to talk over Trump, change the subject, deflect, because she knows she can't win on the issues. That's why she's changed every policy position she holds. She can't win. If Trump is clearly heard, he wins, and she knows it. And I'm sure they're going to hammer reproductive rights tonight.
I think you're right that she can't win on the battlefield of ideas, but she sucks so much, no pun intended, that she's hoping that it's an unforced error from Trump, I think. She's hoping that he will talk over her. She can play the victim card. Look, he's mansplaining everything. And so
she'll play the victim card.
Yes, I'm glad
for
the
sure.
mics are muted though, because we saw that really benefited Trump last time with Biden.
Yes, it did, and she'll get caught in her endless loop of word salad. And abortion will probably be the main talking point. Abortion and January 6th. But I would love to hear Trump say something like, "Look, to me, can I just explain this once and for all to the American people? Abortion, to me, is taking the life of a baby, a human baby. It's akin to murder. So, of course, I'm going to try to limit the number of murders of innocent babies in America. It used to be that Democrats wanted to limit them too. They wanted it safe, legal, and rare. That was their battle cry. But now they celebrate abortion. They promote abortion anytime, anywhere, for any reason. I'm sorry, but I just believe that's wrong. I mean, it's not that difficult to explain that to the American people. You might have a differing viewpoint on whether murdering a baby is okay, as Bill Maher did. But to me, it's hard to make a villain out of somebody who wants to save human life. I got this email from Sharon Nason, who is the chair of Pro-Life Montana. She says, as you may already know, which I actually didn't, Planned Parenthood was successful at getting their abortion initiative on the November ballot here in Montana, which, if passed, will permanently codify abortion without limits into our Montana Constitution. We're one of 10 states that are facing similar initiatives, but Montana is one of the worst because of its deliberately vague and confusing language. Please encourage Blaze contributors to cover the story. Money that is pouring into Montana from out of state to pass this initiative is unreal. Illinois Governor Pritzker has been a key donor.
Blaze contributor, but I'm
Weird.
contributing to the people.
There is no way we can match the deep pockets of Planned Parenthood, but I believe once Montanans realize what this will truly do, they'll vote against. I think it's CI 128. Certainly hope so. And thanks for the heads up there, Sharon. Hopefully, Montanans won't codify that into their constitution.
They've already showed that they're not going to tell us they're going to lie
CI
to us,
128.
CI 128. Okay, so vote against that come November.
what's going on. Show us.
Also tonight,
I'm showing you.
in addition to the January 6th stuff, he's going to have to battle the abortion nonsense. He's going to have to fight against, he should hammer her policy on immigration. And from what I understand, they're absolutely going to make sure that people understand she's not new. Okay, right? This isn't some brand new, fresh, non-politician coming from the business world. This is the vice president of the United States, who is in part responsible for everything that's happening right now, including immigration. In fact, that was her baby. That was given to her to oversee. How'd she do? I mean, every American alive knows how she did.
Sucks.
She was atrocious. He needs to hammer her with inflation. You know, they try to get away with the fact that they inherited the inflation at 9%. Nope. That happened over a year into your administration. The cost of gas. And while we're at it, what about fracking? Let's talk about that tonight. Are you for it? Are you against it? Where was your pivot point? How come we don't understand where any of these policy changes came from? Also, I'd hit her on the war. How much and how long are we going to be involved in that nightmare in Ukraine? I also saw this morning she's even flip-flopped on banning plastic straws.
Yeah. In fact, Axios did a good job of listing 9 different things that she's flip-flopped on. I will say one of the limitations of tonight's debate, though, is that you can't question each other. So that is going to be, you're going to have to hope that David Muir and whatever the chick's name is,
Lindsay,
ask good questions.
Something or other.
Don't hold your breath, though.
Yeah, it worked out okay with Biden, and it's the same rules, right? I think they're the same rules that they had for that. Although, again, Harris tried to change them after the debate had already been agreed to.
Yeah, we mentioned yesterday she's not going to get a phone book to stand on. No soapbox. She's going to, if you ever see a wide shot, you'll see how, she's a foot shorter than Trump. But for whatever that optic is worth, but when they're on the side-by-side split screen, it probably won't show up.
So here's the flip-flops that Axios listed. And at the very top, banning plastic straws for environmental concerns. She's no longer for it. She hasn't explained why, except even when she said she wanted to ban it, she said we have to do better than the flimsy paper straws that we have. Okay. So, but you won't ban the plastic straws that everybody counts on. The second thing, a mandate for automakers to only make electric and hydrogen vehicles by 2035. They backed off that. They don't say why. Banning fracking because of concerns over global warming and potential water contamination. She no longer favors that ban, supposedly. A mandatory buyback program. So this is gun confiscation. If you have to sell your gun, I don't care if you're getting money for it or not. They're confiscating your guns.
Yeah, and effectively that was confirmed over the weekend by Senator Raphael Warnock of Georgia, where he basically said, yeah, we need to get that through Congress and we need to get it to President Kamala. And okay.
So he's still for it, but she claims she's not. Okay. Decriminalizing crossing the border from a criminal offense to a civil one. She no longer supports that. What happened? How did you change your mind on that? Why did you? You know what they actually said? They don't have time to explain this stuff. Did you guys talk about that? They don't have time. I'm sorry, we've only got 60 days. We don't have time to explain where she stands.
So much suck.
What? Okay, wait. You don't have time to explain why almost every policy you've ever outlined is now the opposite of your current policy.
You could sit down for interviews. You could hold press conferences.
Yeah.
You've done none.
None. She's not doing it. She's done one interview and she had her sidekick with her.
Yeah. And I made this point while you were out. Glenn told a story about how when he worked at Fox and Bill O'Reilly called him into his office and he's like, Beck, whenever you get in trouble, something controversial, you come in on my show. I'll look like I'm asking you tough questions. And that way, anytime in the future, you can just say asked and answered.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what she can do with the CNN sit down with Dana Bash.
Yeah. Which she really didn't answer anything.
Correct.
She's no longer for reparations for slavery, apparently.
Oh yeah, even though she was, gosh, we never did play that clip, an old clip of her and Al Sharpton. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Building a wall on the southwest border with Mexico. She didn't want to, and now apparently she's accepted it as part of the bipartisan border package. A federal jobs guarantee that was part of her Green New Deal proposal. No longer for that. Medicare for all. In fact, she wanted to ban private insurance. Remember that? And that apparently isn't where she stands on the issues now. It's pretty amazing. One thing after another for her. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens on that debate tonight. I was reading, of course, the Drudge Report has just become propaganda for the Harris campaign.
Yeah, it's a bulletin board for Kamala Harris.
It really is. It's so amazing to me to watch the transformation from 8 years ago to now on the Drudge Report. Again, I don't know if he sold it and so it's somebody else doing it, or he was unreasonably pro-Trump in 2015 and 16, and now he is just insanely against him to the point where I think he's one of the worst in all of the media as far as Trump derangement syndrome. But yesterday, Congress released a scathing report on the failures of the Afghanistan withdrawal, which should come up tonight as well. It concluded that Joe Biden and his administration, which would include, Kamala Harris, it concluded that they were to blame for all of it.
Yeah.
And so here was John Kirby being asked about that yesterday.
Was anyone ever held accountable by the president directly for what happened with the withdrawal in Afghanistan? And if not, remind the audience why not.
We have all held ourselves accountable for the progress of the withdrawal across the administration.
No, you haven't.
Interagency effort to get those 120,000 people out and to make sure we removed our diplomats and our military personnel safely. As I said,
what you didn't do.
Not everything went according to plan. Nothing ever does.
Gosh. Wow, understatement of the year.
Not everything went according to plan. Is that how you explain the slaughter of 13 Americans during that withdrawal? And leaving behind hundreds more? And leaving behind billions and tens of billions of dollars worth of equipment and weaponry.
Yeah, and that report could have been, as damning as it was, it could have been even more damning, according to Jerry Dunleavy, who chronicled McCall's reporting on this, or final report. There's a lot that was left out that apparently really needs to be accounted for. So this is as bad as it was for the Biden and Harris administration yesterday. It should have been a lot worse for leaders inside that administration.
Yeah, and what do you mean you held yourselves accountable? What does that mean? In what way? Was there a follow-up to this? How do you let him get away with? What do you mean you held yourself accountable? Did you put yourself in jail for a minute? What happened? How did that work? Did you fire yourself and then rehire yourself? Help me understand. You held yourself accountable.
Right.
In what way? Has to be the follow-up there.
Yeah, let me just read this real quick. This tweet from Jerry Dunleavy. With the House GOP report out, I'll note I was the sole writer of the first draft. Turned it in early June. Today's report hacked away what I wrote and skewed/whitewashed key elements. More to come on that. And then he
good.
Very long tweet thread. Yeah.
Jeez. Here's a flashback to Kamala Harris discussing her role in that disaster.
You just made a really big decision. Afghanistan. Yes. Were you the last person in the room? Yes.
Yes. Oh, wow.
And you feel comfortable? I do.
I do.
And I'm going to add to that.
Okay, add to it.
This is a president
oh, gosh.
Who has an extraordinary amount of courage.
Yeah, really? Oh, okay. I do. Yes.
So she takes full responsibility there for the Afghanistan withdrawal. in her own words, yes, I was the last person in the room. Yes, it was the right decision.
Incredible.
Again, is this stuff going to come up tonight in the debate?
I hope so.
It sure better.
It won't come up probably if it's left up to the moderators. Trump's going to have to say something about it. You think they'll go back to that? I kind of doubt it. And these are Trump haters, and they've proven themselves in the past to be such. Both the moderators are obviously anti-Trump and Trump derangement victims. All right, let's take a minute to tell you about Birch Gold. Did you know there's nearly $1 trillion of infrastructure and pandemic funds? Take a look
She
at
has
this.
closely studied the former president's past 6 debate performances. She's also been sort of entrenched in these briefing papers going over the former president's past comments, as well as the ways that he has insulted her, so she can be prepared to respond to that. She's engaged in these mock debates with a stand-in for the former president, and she's had conversations with Hillary Clinton and President Biden, who both extensively have knowledge of debating the former president.
Yeah, and getting their butts kicked in debates by him too. So hang on a second. She said a stand-in. Now I know somebody's dressed up like Trump. Is that where it ends, or is it like an
it was a impersonator.
That's what I read too.
Yes.
It's an actual
It's
Trump
an actual
impersonator.
Trump impersonator that they hired.
Holy crap.
What does that even mean?
What does that mean? Is he just there
Yeah,
doing
is he like they're
zingers?
joking
Or
around?
policy position?
Yeah.
This is going to be fascinating.
Oh, yeah, and she's nervous, man. They are on lockdown.
They should be nervous.
Yeah, he's out there just on the campaign trail, and she's studying.
It was fascinating because, the shine is starting to wear off, and the polls are reflecting that. Thank goodness. It's a little nerve-wracking when she's supposedly up by 6, call it out, up by 6. You think, well, gosh, at this rate, she's going to be up by 26 by November. And then you find out, no, not so much.
Let's hope, but it does appear that she's peaked.
Yeah, it does. It does. Nate Silver just upped the probability that Trump is going to win on 538. He has Trump with a 63.8% chance, so almost 64% chance of winning to 36% for Harris.
Does that factor in fraud, or is that just raw numbers?
That's just raw numbers.
Support.
Yeah. Okay. 64% chance of winning Pennsylvania, 54% Michigan, 53 for Wisconsin. For Arizona, 77% chance, 75% in North Carolina, 68 Georgia, and 61% in Nevada. I mean, that's pretty amazing. So that's about a 5-point boost since last Thursday when he only had but it was 58.2% then. This is really good news. A New York Times poll was just taken too, and he leads her by 1 nationally. I mean, I think it's 48-47, and that's higher than he had at this point in either 2016 or 2020.
Yeah.
So he's actually doing better.
Yeah, we mentioned yesterday, his approval, better now
than it was then.
In those 2 years.
That's really something.
That is fascinating, actually.
Especially with the barrage, with the onslaught, with the bloodbath every day in the media.
Around the clock for over 9 years now.
Yeah.
The media has had Donald Trump in their sights.
The world, I don't think, has ever seen anything like it. And then for him to withstand all of that and actually be in the lead should give us hope. It's been a little depressing. It was kind of a tough summer because we're taking a beating with the media, beating him down. Oh, he's a convicted felon. January 6th. Abortion, reproductive rights. Green New Deal. All of that stuff. And so you start to think, okay, well, it's just me that supports him this right. Am I the last conservative on earth? That's exactly how they want you to feel. They want you to feel completely alone. Fact is, we outnumber them Glenn used to say all the time, we surround them. Yeah, we do. And we forget that because they're such loudmouths. You can't believe it's the minority. It's like, wow, there's just a few of you? Really? Now, Bernie Sanders was out telling the truth. Was this Sunday or it was Sunday? Yeah. This is pretty amazing. Talking about Kamala Harris. See if you see anything interesting in his statement here.
Described Vice President Kamala Harris as a progressive. She has previously supported Medicare for all. Now she does not. She's previously supported a ban on fracking. Now she does not. These, Senator, are ideas that you have campaigned on. Do you think that she is abandoning her progressive ideals?
No, I don't think she's abandoning her ideals. I think she's trying to be pragmatic and doing what she thinks is right in order to win the election.
Wait, what? Excuse me? That used to be the unspoken. I mean, it's true, but it used to be unspoken. Now they're proud of it. Yeah, well, she's doing what it takes to win the election. Oh, okay. So she's just pandering. She doesn't mean any of this stuff. She's lying right now to get elected, is what you just said. She's lying to be elected. She hasn't changed on anything. She herself told us that even before I went on vacation. She said her values haven't changed. Well, all your policy positions have. What do you mean your values haven't changed? So again, you're just doing this to get elected. Yeah. How can we trust you? How is it possible that they expect trust now from the American people?
Yeah, and if you need another reason to make sure you go out and vote against her in November, they're saying that her inside circle suggesting that Keith Ellison, top of the short list for Attorney General of the United States.
Oh man,
if she becomes president, please, Lord.
Wow.
Yeah, that can't happen.
No, if she's elected, it's really bad for America. It's really bad in so many ways. Wow. Meanwhile, Liz Cheney, you know, the conservative Republican Liz Cheney.
Big time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She said, if you don't vote for Kamala, you're abandoning the Constitution. Wait, what? Okay. That's fun. So that is a little different from what you said in 2020 when you said Kamala Harris is a radical liberal who would raise taxes, take away guns and health insurance, and explode the size and power of the federal government.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
Same person. Yeah, we had a minute-long clip of her going after Kamala Harris 4 years ago or 8 years ago, whatever the hell it was.
Oh, I wouldn't mind seeing that again.
Okay, we'll try to find that.
Yeah. You just played that yesterday or last week sometime? I mean, that's it's shamelessness of these people. How are you not embarrassed by that? How? You know, I mean, you do know you, right? Have you met you, Liz? Here's what you said then, and now you're saying it's abandoning the Constitution to vote for Donald Trump. It just shows the Cheneys' insincerity, what lying sacks they are, and how they're not conservative and never have been. Really staggering and stunning to me to watch it. But again, there's no shame. People don't have any shame anymore. I don't know. When you say things like this that are the total opposite of what you said before, and they're things this extreme, don't you have to sort of explain yourself a little bit? Like, you know I said she's really liberal back in 2020, but I was wrong. I was wrong. She's really very, very moderate. And then tell us about how we're abandoning the Constitution if we vote for Donald Trump. But they don't even bother to do that. They don't even respect us enough to lie about this stuff.
Right. That's what we demand, Bernie.
Yeah, we demand you at least lie to us when you're trying to hedge your bets like this. Again, they have it both ways on every single issue. And it's fascinating to watch, and I'm gratified that it's looking like the American people are starting to realize and be repelled by it. And that better be reflected in November. because we're in trouble if not. Yesterday, Keith and Jeffy discussed the out-of-control Haitian immigrant situation, where ducks are being grabbed by immigrants in Springfield, Ohio.
They're being grabbed by their neck. I like that.
That's not nice.
No, and this video is just horrific.
It's a little disturbing, so you may not want your kids to watch this.
This is what's happening in Ohio.
Okay.
What did you do? Why'd you kill the cat? Smile for me.
Yep.
Smile.
She was eating.
Did you eat that cat?
The cat.
Did you eat it?
Oh gosh.
No, why'd you kill it? Did you guys see all this?
No, we pulled up and she was just laying there with you.
Oh, did you see her eating that? She was eating it?
Yeah.
Oh. I'll call the Humane Society, see if they'll come pick this cat up. It's deceased.
Oh my God.
That is just bizarre.
Small town USA in 2024, courtesy of the Biden-Harris administration, which let in over 300,000 Haitian immigrants, 20,000 of which ended up in Springfield, Ohio.
Any clue as to why Springfield, Ohio is the magnet that's drawing all the
Well, it was a
Haitian
dumping
immigrants?
ground for the administration. They had some job openings 4 years ago, and so they look like the perfect candidate.
My gosh.
Take a town of 58,000 people and dump 20,000 foreigners into it.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the big story yesterday.
Wow.
So
I missed it.
Yeah.
I paid little attention to what was going on. Just wanted to get away from it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But, that comes with a price. You come back and you're sort of bombarded with it and buried. Feels like you're drowning. Come back. Yeah, but welcome to it. It's just fun. And that's what we're here to do. Make the apocalypse fun. Nothing speeds the apocalypse along like dumping 20,000 immigrants into a small town all at once. That's a really good idea.
Pat Gray Unleashed.
And welcome. 888-900-3393. Pat Unleashed on Twitter. Got some tweets here. Jimmy Dimples tweets, don't have time to explain your stance, Kamala? Then I don't have time to consider you. Yeah. Really good point. The other guy's biggest fan. She was actually for the $87 billion before she voted against it. Gender face. Banning plastic straws? I don't think so. Not on my watch, you witch. That's my line in the sand. Yeah, plastic straws. I think that's a lot of people's line in the sand. That's the hill I'm going to die on. That's the last straw.
That's the last straw. Get it? Plastic straw ban from Kamala Harris. That's the last straw.
Boom. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
I was saving my button for something else. Oh, yeah. In a nice way. Bad engineer tweets, hope Trump loses his voice tonight. Let Camellia talk herself out of office.
Yeah.
She could absolutely do that in a heartbeat. Patriot Beagles 2. Did Kamala use a Trumpy trout for debate prep?
Awesome.
And Sons of Thunder 44. After Pat clubs those baby seals, maybe give them to a Haitian. Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe. Sure.
Oh, my goodness.
Probably really tasty, I would think.
Don't give him ideas, unless that makes him go to Canada. And Donald Trump referred to that country as being an S-hole country, if you recall.
I do recall. Yeah,
Well,
and he got all kinds of flack for that.
He's more right than wrong when he does declarations like that.
Yeah. Now, we were talking about the Haitian situation where Chris just found this incredible stat. What percentage is it that of the Haitian population is now in the United States?
5% of the Haitian population is in America.
5% of Haiti's population lives in the U.S. now.
Okay. And we probably paid to bring them all here.
I'm sure. Sure we did.
We are so dumb.
Is that a problem for anybody?
Wow.
I can't believe it. And in the past, here's Kamala admitting that she created the immigrant problem places like Springfield are dealing with.
That is why also, starting with our administration, we gave TPS, temporary protected status, to Haitian migrants, 55,000.
Okay.
And then more recently, we extended temporary protected status to over 100,000 Haitian migrants for that very reason, that they need support, they need protection.
309,000.
What if we just move the entire population to, I don't know, Miami? You know, I mean, some of them could probably fit in Orlando, and then spread them all over the country. What is the population of Haiti? Why do they have any people there? Just everybody come here. It's a great country. Everybody come here. If you're having any sort of problem in your current nation, don't fix it there. Just come here. And we will make everything okay. We promise to feed you, clothe you, house you, give you a living, and just, you don't even have to work for it. We'll just provide you with everything you need, because we're the richest nation on earth. And we only have a $36 trillion debt. So there's plenty of room and plenty of money, plenty of resources for all of us.
11.5 million. That's the population of Haiti.
And just 5% are here. Come on, we can do better than that. We can do better. And Kamala wants to. And Liz Cheney supports her, so it must be good, right? Here's what, again, we were mentioning that I think you played this, was it yesterday? The Liz Cheney thing last week sometime? So here's what Liz Cheney said back in the year 2020. But I mean, come on, how old were you in 2020? I was 4. I was 4 years old. So this is ancient history, but here's what she used to think about Kamala.
As somebody who is a centrist, and in one fell swoop here, he has put somebody on the ticket whose voting record in the Senate is to the left of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. So I think that, you know, the American people are going to look at the substance of this. They're going to look at what she stood for in the past. They're going to look at what she said during the primary election. And it's very clear. She is a radical liberal. She's somebody that has said we ought to spend $32 trillion on Medicare for all.
So
if you look at her record as well in California, she did, in fact, essentially ban gun sales with executive action. And she threatened during the primaries to do the same thing if she's elected, if she's as somebody who is a centrist. And in one fell swoop here.
Yeah, okay, just repeated itself. But yeah, in one fell swoop here, now they've got this liberal on the ticket. Extreme left-wing radical liberal.
But she's good with her as president.
Now.
It was vice president that Elizabeth Cheney had a problem with, because you can't give a radical that kind of power as vice president, but we can make her president. Her and her dad are just nuts.
I've never been a huge fan of the Cheney family, but that holds especially true now. And Glenn set out this. It's interesting because Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney and all of these people over the years, Adam Kinzinger, Bill Kristol, who've been so critical of other conservatives who actually stick to conservative values. It's been fascinating to watch them do a complete 180 on their supposed principles, and now they all support Kamala Harris. In this email that Glenn's team sent out, this is from Chris Brady, talks about how Adam Kinzinger, who was so critical of Glenn years ago, because Glenn labeled him a rhino. Imagine that. Wait, Adam Kinzinger, a Republican in name only? Come on now, that's harsh. He said then, here's what Kinzinger said: the perception is if you do one thing out of line with what's considered hardcore conservatism, or what Glenn Beck says, or what Mark Levin says, then you're a rhino. Yeah, far be it from him. He only supports Kamala Harris, who's essentially a communist. Bill Kristol's flip-flop is even more incredible. Kristol once took it upon himself to attack Glenn for his warnings about radical Islam and creeping authoritarianism. Now he supports and endorses Kamala Harris. Kristol compared Glenn to fringe elements like the John Birch Society. And now here he is supporting Kamala Harris. Then there's Jennifer Rubin from the Washington Post. She's masqueraded as a conservative for years. She said about Glenn, rather than reflexively rising to his defense when questioned about Beck, why don't conservatives call him out and explain that he doesn't represent the views of mainstream conservatives? I'm sure she does, though, now that she supports Kamala Harris. Nothing more conservative than that, is there? Again, shameless. How are you not embarrassed? Switch parties or something, or tell people, look, I've had a complete change of heart. I'm going to become a Democrat now. You might as well, instead of masquerading as a Republican, but they don't because they get so much positive attention from the rest of the media for being supposed Republicans and then criticizing everything conservatives stand for. Something else. It's really something to watch. All right, let me take a minute and tell you about Raycon. We've talked for years now about Raycon's everyday earbuds. Amazing sound quality at half the price of the other guys. If you haven't gotten a pair yet, now is the time. Raycon just launched an upgraded model of their best-selling everyday earbuds. With active noise cancellation, a super ergonomic design, and multi-point connectivity that lets you pair with two devices at once, they're better than ever. I love the variety of variant new colors, especially the sleek deep blue ones. Haven't seen earbuds that sharp before. Plus, they optimize the gel tips to give you an even better customized fit. They were great in the beginning. They were great anyway. But now they're even better. And they even come with customizable sound styles and awareness mode for when you need to hear what's happening around you. These new upgrades, like active noise cancellation and weatherproof protection, make them just a must-have for every day.
That gray is unleashed.
Love to hear your thoughts and concerns, if any, about tonight's debate. What would you like to hear from Donald Trump? What do you think he ought to be doing to create more separation between him and Kamala Harris? As they keep saying, the difference couldn't be any clearer. I mean, could there be any more stark a contrast than between these two candidates? I mean, as much as she's trying to align herself with policies, we all know better. I hope. So that what is it? 8 o'clock? Is it 8 o'clock start?
9 o'clock Eastern on ABC.
Okay.
8 o'clock Central. I believe it's a 90-minute debate.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So it's going to be kind of a late night for us. No.
I mean, what?
Yeah. What time do you normally go to bed?
Ooh, 8:30.
8:30. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You have to stay up a little later than that tonight.
Okay.
All right. Good.
Well, the Rangers aren't in town, so you don't have to worry about
I
going.
don't. I'll be there on Friday night.
That's been a development at
yes,
Cruz goes to every Rangers game now, and
What?
suddenly
Yes,
they're in
sir.
the playoff race because of Chris Cruz, so he has to go to every game.
You're welcome. Okay. I did it just for you.
You did it for me?
Just for you.
Yeah. I'm not a Rangers fan, so
Oh.
how does that apply?
Oh, okay. That's how you work.
Really? You go every game?
Last week, yeah, I did it.
Yeah. Okay,
I
good.
discovered that he gets free tickets.
I get free tickets, so I could just go.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. In places like Denver, Colorado, immigrants are being given everything they need. Free housing, free food, free healthcare. It's almost like it would be an advantage to renounce your citizenship,
Yes.
move to Mexico, and then sneak back across the border.
You know what? Kamala gets elected.
might be
Maybe a
happening.
lot of that minus
No kidding.
minus the sneaking back across the border.
So here's a woman who is trying to figure out how to get a medical procedure performed for her daughter. Listen to this.
I feel like only in America can you need medical assistance that you can't afford to get. And in order to get government help, you have to make under a certain amount. So if you're someone who's like makes $60,000 a year, you don't qualify for any help, but you can't actually afford to get your child the services that they need. But if I quit my job and I go work for McDonald's, I can live off the government. It needs to make it make sense. Make it make sense.
Oh my gosh, wow.
It's heartbreaking.
Struggling in every way imaginable. And the slightest bump in the road turns into a disaster for them. But like you said, if you're an illegal alien here, you're fine. We're getting report after report after report. I don't even think we played last week. We had the clip for the longest time. You remember how we had that receipt that was left behind that showed all of the money left on the EBT card or whatever it's called?
Oh, yes.
And also the cash balance on stuff. Well, you had another report of that popping up somewhere. So it's clear that they are giving thousands upon thousands of dollars in assistance to these illegal aliens that are here. And people like that young woman are struggling. This is not a recipe for success, America. This is unsustainable.
Yes, that's a pretty good word for it. It definitely is unsustainable. Wall Street Journal had a comparison between Trump and Harris. And I don't know if they finally went to her website and they got a few policy positions out of her, but they compare the two of them on some issues like the Federal Reserve. Kamala Harris says she respects central bank independence, continuing a precedent enforced by Biden. She said, as president, I would never interfere in the decisions that the Fed makes. Good, because they're so good. The Fed is so trustworthy, so solid, so helpful. Don't mess with them. Donald Trump, on the other hand, shapes the Federal Reserve by appointing members to its board. As president, he frequently bashed Powell, his pick to lead the central bank. Yeah, but, I mean, you never know what these people are going to do once they get in. Really good examples of that in both the Supreme Court and Federal Reserve and elsewhere. On personal taxes, Donald Trump cut taxes in 2017. Those tax cuts expire at the end of next year. And he wants to extend them indefinitely, which needs to happen. There shouldn't be a sunset on these tax cuts. So if he gets elected, you will have lower taxes. Now, Kamala Harris will say, only if you're wealthy, only if you're a billionaire, will you have lower taxes. That's garbage. Everybody who pays taxes got a tax cut under Donald Trump in 2017, and he's going to make it.
What the hell do you get? $4 million.
I said, look, the reason it's being cut.
Willy, woo. Yeah, I done for you, yo. I got for you, yo. Oh, we gonna be watching. Don't you worry, yo. Don't you worry. I don't know that my cousin might come back on the TV, so I'm like, yeah. I don't have a computer where I could do a straight up like live chat. But I'm working on that. I got the camera coming. It'll be here by Friday.
As a daughter of immigrant parents, I am ashamed of what the Biden-Harris administration has done to our country by opening our borders to all, including criminals, who are wolves in sheep's clothing. Doctor, I heard you mention that over 100 people are missing in Mexico. I know. One of those people is my cousin, and all of my family lives in Mexico. We have to comprehend that the majority of those are women. There's a word that is used in Mexico, and it's called femicidio. That's called femicide. the act of being murdered just because you are a woman.
All right, first at 5:30, it's a big night in America, and this is a live look at the national conference.
I would not put Crowder on my show. Here you go, I'll show it.
The podcast, Coach Colin here. We got a whole bunch going on in this video. So we're going to have Joe Rogan. He's talking about illegal immigration. He brings up something that I was unaware of, which is that a Venezuelan gang took over an apartment complex on U.S. soil. Now, I've heard of this gang. They're called TDA. I've covered them before, and I'm going to show you some of that. But they are in Denver. They are in New York. They are in California as well. They are doing all sorts of stuff, smuggling, taking over apartment complexes, obviously. So we're going to be going over a whole bunch in regards to that gang and what they're doing. Then we're going to go into voters, illegal immigrants being registered to vote. There's 2 instances of this happening, one in Texas, one in Alabama. Alabama found 3,200. Texas found an undisclosed amount. They're not really sure, but they've had this problem before, and it was in the tens of thousands. So I'm going to be showing you that. I'm going to be showing you the gangs. I'm going to be showing you Kamala Harris being the border czar. There's a whole information dump on this one. There's like 12 clips that I'm going to be showing you, but we'll start with Joe Rogan as always. Let's go.
If the economy, it was amazing. It was a force. And she started with Kamala now is taking over the whole no tax on tips.
Yeah,
trying to take that over, trying to say that she's never was the border czar and that from day one she's going to do something about it. When I think there's like 4 or 5 months left in the administration right now. What to do about something?
Also, denying she was the border czar when there's hundreds of people talking on television calling her the border czar.
Oh yeah,
it's nuts.
Yeah,
that's
including Joe Biden himself.
Yeah,
said border czar.
Yeah, they said it on CNN,
czar.
and then CNN later saying she was never the border czar.
Yeah.
Oh, she wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, why'd you say it back then? You guys are misinformation.
Yeah. So, she did go to the border. She went to the border of Nicaragua and then in the bordering country or whatever. Talking about the root cause and all that stuff. Well, yeah, root cause.
Well, it seems very coordinated, doesn't it? The border thing?
Yeah.
That one I really want to know. Like, what are they trying to do? What's the end goal here?
I mean, it seemed the obvious thing would be for the old idea that's for voters, that people coming into this country are naturally Democrats, but that's not really true. You know, I have so many Latino friends, and the people that came here the right way, they can't stand what's going on because they really can't, and they have a tendency to really kind of get families and church and stuff to be, you know, become conservative and believe in the American dream, and that's not true. I mean, the only other thing would be the power, I guess, and you create definitely have less Republican votes, I guess they think, with that, and you create chaos, which is kind of another kind of Soviet tactic that they, you know, if you want to foment revolution, that's what you do, create chaos.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's really get into a conspiracy theory for that, but I don't see the sense of it. And then I have people like my housekeeper, Josie, who was over here illegally for so long in her life. Then finally I said, in fact, when Trump was going to get elected in 2016, she was like really, really afraid. And I said, you know what? We have to do this the right way. You're going to apply for citizenship, and I'm going to sponsor you. And so we started the process then, you know, got her green card and everything to it. And she went through her citizenship test with me, which she was doing. She's failed twice, but I went through the citizenship test with her. She got everything perfect. But she goes over there and she gets treated like dirt, you know, really.
Which is crazy. The people trying to do it the right way get treated like shit.
She gets treated like, you know, she's doing something wrong or whatever. And I know she can pass it because I went through the whole thing with her randomly. And yet, if you come into this country illegally, they're going to pay for your hotel. They're going to give you $1,000 to spend. They're going to,
That's what I was saying.
Flee. What state do you want to go to?
Yeah.
And you know, we don't get those rights.
Well, it's just insane when we have so many poor people in this country. There's U.S. citizens that aren't being taken care of, and you're just letting people come here. Yeah, veterans. Letting people come here illegally and giving them all this money. Like, what's the end game?
Yeah. What is the end game?
And also,
because even the mayor of New York is complaining about it.
Yeah. Well, he fucked up.
Yeah.
He used to call it a sanctuary city. We welcome anybody. And they're like, great.
Yeah.
Come on down.
Yeah.
Well, also, Kamala Harris has said that terrorists aren't coming in through the border. That's not true. They've arrested terrorists.
Of course it is. That's been going on for a very long time. I mean, even back to the Bush administration, where they would send floods of like kids. The cartel would come down to, you know, people way down in Mexico and said, we're taking your kids, and that's it. And couldn't say a single thing about it. The cartel runs Mexico, I believe. You know, that's a fact. And just bringing them to the border, and in sending in a flood of kids or whoever to get across the border embedded in that are terrorists. You send in 1,000 with 4 terrorists in it, the odds are a lot better of getting in here.
Yeah.
And that's been going on for a very long time.
But it's just never been as porous as it is now, right? Because now it's not just porous, it's like an open invitation.
Yeah.
Which is just insane. And then if you want to come here from Europe, like say if you're a mathematician or something like that, or even a friend of mine from Estonia, he's a comedian, he's trying very hard to get his green card. It's a process. But if you want to come here illegally, all you have to do is walk. Right. They'll let you in, they give you a cell phone, they give you money, they'll put you up at a hotel, they give you free food.
It's just like that. They throw away their IDs and everything. Yep. You know, before they come across the border, you can say you're anybody.
Yeah.
From any country.
Yeah. No genetics testing.
No questions asked. Just, hey, come to a future court date, maybe.
Yeah, it's 7 years.
What state would you like to go to?
Right. And then the court dates are years ahead. So you get to live in this country illegally subsidized for years.
Mm-hmm.
And you would assume that those people are going to vote for the people that did that for them. And I think that's part of the issue.
And, you know, a lot of, there's deals made with the cartel and all this stuff. The cartel is just like, the cartel is charging, what is it, $5,000 a head? $5,000 a head times 15 million. What does that come to? That's a lot of money.
Jesus Christ.
You know, that I think basically our government has been paying for a lot, you know, subsidizing them over there and dealing with the cartel. And The world is turned upside down. It really is, from at least for the world I went to. But I'm old, so maybe not so relevant. But
Not true.
I don't think that common sense. I think it's always relevant, if you ask me.
It's relevant.
Yeah.
It's very relevant. Everything's relevant. It's also like everybody recognizes that this is not the best course for everybody, for the whole country. Regardless of if you're a left-wing person, you do not want terrorists sneaking into this country and blowing up cities. You don't. Of course you don't.
No.
So if there's an option where they can get here easily and quickly, you would want to seal that up for everybody. Even if you're a kind person that thinks we should make some sort of a path to citizenship, which I agree. Like your housekeeper, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. There should be some sort of a path where people who are here. Look, I'm the grandchild of immigrants. People came across because they wanted a better life, but it was easier to do back then in the 20s.
Yeah.
Not hard. Get over
That's
here.
true.
Once you're here, you can settle down.
Yeah.
I mean, there should be a path. And that's one of the things that made America so interesting, because it's a melting pot of all these ambitious people that came here from a place that sucked, and they carved out a life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There should be a path.
But
I'm all for immigrants.
It should
From
be a legal
everywhere.
path.
From everywhere. Just to do it the right way.
Right.
It's better for everybody.
Yes. Better for everybody.
That's just the way it is. I mean, as it is now, it's just that, Venezuelan gangs are, we're all moving into the same neighborhood. It's very much.
What do you see the thing in Aurora, Colorado?
Back in the New York days. What?
The Aurora, Colorado apartment building. Do you know that issue?
No.
Okay. There's an apartment building in Aurora, Colorado that has been taken over by Venezuelan gangs.
Yeah.
And so they essentially, no one can collect rent anymore. The gang's collecting rent. They're evicting everyone out of the building, and they're controlling this building. And everyone's aware of it.
Yeah.
And it's
basically squatting the laws, using the laws of the United States.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because Colorado's incredibly liberal.
Right.
And that area is incredibly liberal. And
Yeah.
so see if you can find that story on the Venezuelan gangs taking over the apartment building in Colorado. I was watching a news piece on it today where they were, expressing this real confusion and frustration that there was nothing they could be doing about this, and that they have different doors have X's on them. The red X's are when people have been evacuated from the apartment.
They shut it down.
They
shut down slumlord apartment. Wait a minute. Slumlord. Are they saying anything about the gangs?
That's what I Googled. It says it's.
Are they calling them slumlords now?
Aurora evictions draw attention to owners' neglect at other apartments. Yeah, maybe that's true. But what about the gangs?
That's what I Googled, and this is what pops up.
Yeah, see, that's the problem with Google. There's some stories. Okay, Special Task Force, check that out. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Special Task Force investigating Venezuelan gangs' alleged ties to Aurora. Aurora City Council officials say that apartment complex on Nome Street is closing due to code violations, but some council members allege there's more to the story. So this is what I've been reading. What I've been reading is that these Venezuelan gangs have occupied this thing. The gang known as Tren de Aragua started out as a prison gang in Venezuela, has expanded throughout the Western Hemisphere. Last month, the Biden administration designated the gang as a transnational criminal organization, accusing it of engaging in human smuggling and trafficking, gender-based violence, money laundering, and illicit drug trafficking. Aurora Police Department, in partnership with the Raven Task Force, has assigned 4 detectives to a special task force that includes additional local, state, and federal partners to investigate the violent crime impacting our migrant community, said Aurora PD spokesperson late Thursday. Yeah.
Wow.
They take over an apartment complex.
Yeah.
The city is closing near Colfax and Peoria. Interesting.
So they just basically take over an apartment complex, and there's ain't nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Type of situation.
Yeah.
You can go through the courts all you want.
Well, especially if our laws are so lax.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not good. And if they're all flooding in through the border, and these are the type of people that are flooding, those guys aren't coming over legally, the Venezuelan gangers. So that is an effect of what this
basically, especially Venezuela. I mean, that's been going on for a while. People trying to leave the country, and then they empty the jails, like Castro did. Empty the jails and let them come out. Because the gangs are their political force. At some point they become a political force.
Yeah.
Because how many that takes, but that's what they're doing.
Especially when you have
warfare almost.
You have things like defunding the police and this lack of appreciation for law enforcement.
Yeah. And no cash bail.
Uh-huh.
Just a slap on the wrist.
All of it is crazy.
You
It's
can beat
all-
up cops and it's
Yeah.
okay.
You can beat up cops as an
Yeah.
illegal immigrant
Yeah.
on film,
Yeah.
and you just get let out of jail, and the kid's giving the Tupac double fingers to the.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. that
Crazy.
is- Wow.
This is what is the end game of this type of behavior, and how is there no course correction? That's what's scary to people, and what should be scary to people, because this seems like if I wanted to throw the country into complete chaos, that's how I would do it.
Of course.
I'd have gangs come in through the border.
That's the way Stalin did it. You know, they were
Yeah.
involved in bank. Stalin in his earlier his career that they robbed banks.
Wow.
That's what they did. They were a gang and basically mayhem, but they robbed banks to finance the cause.
Very interesting. I've been reading about Karl Marx's life, right? I went through all that, and then Stalin's life as well. And if you listen to how Marx was growing up,